we've got Josh Small in the house, certified SDR leader. Josh, thanks for being here, man. Why don't you give yourself a quick intro? Who are
Yeah,
you?
yeah. Thanks for having me, Jack. So, Josh Mall here. I've been in and around sales almost 10 years now. First tech sales, Series A startup, 2015, selling business intelligence data, SaaS software. It's been a crazy journey. I think tech sales is the best career out there. You can make a ton of money, do a lot of great things for your life and your family. There's no other job out there like it. I've hired probably hundreds of SDRs now, interviewed hundreds of SDRs, have been around Fortune 500s, many startups, fintech, all kinds of different industries within SaaS and software. And yeah, excited to be here.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, with all the interviews you've run, I want to know what your top three favorite interview questions are to ask SDR candidates.
For sure. I'm probably the most casual hiring manager you'll ever interview with, right? I think if you're gonna come to an SDR interview, it's gonna be ran like a discovery call, right? So I'm more interested in how someone can hold a conversation, how they articulate their value. Um, it's not super rigid, right? So like a lot of times when I get on the phone with someone, I'll just say, "Hey, tell me about yourself." I think that's like pretty cliche, but I think, open-ended question like that, it's to really give someone a chance to sell themselves. And I think that's like the most under kind of prepared question, right? You need to have your own elevator pitch. Just like if you're selling a product, you have to sell yourself in the same way. And that's really the first question, right? So tell me about yourself. Why are we talking today? All that kind of good stuff.
Awesome. All right, we'll dig in there. Then we'll dig into the other two questions. So, tell me about yourself. What do you actually want to hear?
Yeah, I want you to be able to articulate, work experience. If you're a recent grad, what you did in university, or maybe something like within a trade, like just like articulate your experience and how it's relevant to the role we're talking about today, right? And it's super open ended too, right? So I mean, like ideally, you'll articulate your value, but also like sell in a way. Everybody has these job recs, right? It's not like you're going into these interviews blind. Like you have an idea that these hiring managers and HR, they're writing these job recs. Like it's really specific, maybe the type of technology the company uses, ICP they sell to. So just like being able to articulate like how your experience aligns with the role we're talking about today. And, not using a ton of filler words, like just strong communication. I think you and I probably both agree. We were just talking about earlier, like the number one skill I think for SDRs is being able to communicate and articulate strongly. And like once again, like super open ended. It's like that's your chance to go for it.
Yeah, I love the open-ended questions because that tells you everything you need to know about that candidate, how they handle that, how they respond. Are they super long-winded and they get way too deep and you have no idea what they're talking about? Or are they way too broad
Yeah.
and they're super unprepared? Are they confident? Are they insecure?
Yeah.
That kind of stuff. That right there, that first question, tell me about yourself, sets the
Well,
tone.
that's a good point, right? Because if you think about like what makes a strong elevator pitch, it should be clear, concise, probably, I don't know, 30 seconds or less, maybe 45 seconds or less, right? I think if you tell me about yourself, 90 seconds is fair, right? Especially if you have a lot
Mhm.
of experience. But yeah, good point. Like it shouldn't be this long-winded answer, right? So I think that's a good point.
Yeah, the frame I like to give people is tell me about yourself. Start personal. Be a human. Tell them about your life growing up, what hardships you encountered through life, because what you're trying to do is you're trying to win their trust. The whole SDR interview process is about de risking yourself as a candidate in the
Yeah,
hiring manager's eyes because there's so many applicants. If I see one yellow flag with an applicant, I've got five others that have green flags. Bye bye. So you have to
exactly.
de-risk yourself as much as possible. And the way you're going to start with that is building trust. So start personal. Walk them through, hey, growing up, very big family, but we had our challenges. Here were the specific challenges. Here's what I went through. And here's what my life goal is based on my childhood and how I grew up.
Totally.
And
Yeah.
then you transition into how a career in tech sales is going to help you go accomplish that very big personal why.
Totally. And there's a lot of ways you can showcase your personality, like other than verbally, like maybe like you and I are talking today, maybe you went to University of Florida and I went to University of Florida. Maybe I'd show up with like a UF polo, right? And like, I'm sitting behind a white wall, but like maybe you can have some, photos of your kids or whatever. Like there's a lot of ways to showcase personality and build rapport. I mean, like, dude, it's just like, it's like running discovery calls. Like, how do you build rapport in a discovery call? It's no different than talking to a hiring manager.
Full agree. And you hit a micro point that's super important. How you present yourself, y'all, is so important virtually. Because if we were in person, I'm going to gather so much more data on who you are as a human when you shake my hand, the way you interact physically, your vibe, your aura, like what's around you. I'm going to feel that. Virtually, I don't feel any of that.
Yeah.
And so if you're in a messy room, it's all dark, there's distractions and noises. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to be in this interview, right? But
Exactly.
if you look like Josh's background or mine, it's clean, it's put together, it's well lit. Okay, that tells me a lot more about you as an individual when you're off the screen than, you know, any other way we can do that virtually.
Yeah, that's a good point, right? Because it's, invest in yourself. I mean, like, you can go to Walmart, spend $10, get a shirt with a collar on it, get a $10 webcam, maybe you go the extra mile, you spend an extra $10 to get some lighting. I mean, you're talking
Mhm.
30, 40, maybe $50. It's an investment in your career, right? I mean, it's like, I think $50 is pretty good ROI to get a high paying SDR role. And it is super important. Like, we're talking virtually, you can show up in gym shorts, just have like a nice shirt on, clean background, some decent lighting, good webcam. I think it's super, super, super important.
Yeah, literally me right now, just wearing
Yeah.
a plain shirt and gym shorts. That's how we do it.
And for sure, I mean, like, in like these folks that you're talking to, like, they want to be SDRs today, but like one day, I'm assuming they want to be account executives, maybe CSMs or whatever, right? And it's super, super important. Like, when you're running demos and discovery calls, and you're talking to the C-suite, trying to sell high ticket, and trying to sell anything really. Like presentation is super important, right? Like eye
Mhm.
contact, digital eye contact, clean background. Like, it's important in an interview, but like, it's good, like, this is how it works, like selling digitally today. It's like, there's all these little things matter. Like, if I'm selling you ABC and product, like, you're probably looking at 5, 6, or 7 other vendors. It's like, it might be just like these really, really little things that kind of move the needle.
Agree or disagree? Dressing formally for interviews will only help a candidate.
No, agree. Yeah, 100%.
Every time I see someone roll up in a suit and a tie, I'm like, cool, you're locked in. I like you.
Well, to
Or
an
the
extent. Oh, sorry, go ahead. I didn't make a chop. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, or the female equivalent, right? Whatever that looks like, but formal. But okay, push back.
Yeah, digital might be different because I remember interviewing at GovSpend, it was 2015. That's Series A SaaS startup. That's where I kind of got into tech sales, and I remember, like, you know how tech startups are, like, everyone shows up in jeans and t-shirts, and I remember walking in a full suit and tie, and it was a little out of place. So, like, I wouldn't, to a certain extent, like, to answer your question, like, overdressing is never gonna hurt, but like, trying to, like, I think a good rule of thumb is like one step above the office, right? So, like, if you're going to a startup and, typically it's like jeans and t-shirts, like, I don't know, maybe business casual, nice dress shirt tucked into your pants, maybe a jacket. You don't want to show up in a tuxedo to a role where everybody's wearing
Yeah.
t-shirts.
I think that's a good benchmark right there. One level above what the
Yeah.
office culture is. That's good. One other thought I had that we're talking about in terms of appearance is I have straight up moved people to the reject pile because of how they've come across over camera, visually only. Now, that probably sounds messed up,
No.
but it's just facts because at the end of the day, I have 5 other candidates who all present really well. They look great on camera. Your background isn't all disheveled. You might be a good candidate and you might be frustrated because you're getting passed up on, but are you presenting well? That's
Yeah.
the question.
I think that's super fair. I mean, I would never reject someone. I don't want to say I would never, because, like, it's not a hard rule, but like on clothing wise, like, I don't want to
Yeah.
say never. I mean, like, if you show up in a hoodie and like your hair's all messed up, like, maybe, but I think it's, to your point, like, more presentation. So if you show up and you're on your Zoom call on your cell phone, it's like this like angle with the cameras up, and it's like super
Yeah.
dark in your room, and the audio's bad. I might say, hey, like, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. Like, let's realign. And if they come back and it's still a mess, like, that's probably like you're probably rejection. But like, based off clothes, you'd have to like show up like a total mess for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. And if you have a Mac, and I know not everyone does, but Mac and iPhone, you can actually use your iPhone as your camera
Yeah.
and it has 4K quality. It's
Yeah.
crazy. Or you go to Walmart and you get a $10 webcam, like Josh
For
said.
sure. I mean, I'm working on the road today, so like, I'm working just off my laptop. It's still maybe you disagree, it's decent quality. I
You
mean,
look great, man.
yeah, appreciate it. I mean, at home I have a good setup, but like, it's not hard. Like, we were just talking about, I mean, 30, 40, maybe $50. It's a good investment. I mean, that's $50 is great ROI to get a share career.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. So, first question is tell me about yourself. What's your second favorite question to ask in interviews?
Once again, like it's going to be common theme for these questions, super open ended. So like, tell me what you know about the company, right?
Mm,
Because I would, we're talking about what makes a successful SDR. I think communication, ability to research effectively, right? So like, you're gonna have, even if you had a day, because like think about this, like in the day of life in SDR, like you don't get a day to research, right? I mean, like maybe you might only get 90 seconds, right? If you're on a call blitz, you might only get 90 seconds, right? So now we're talking, you might have 24 hours. Sometimes interviews are scheduled weeks in advance. You have plenty of time to research. And especially today, there's information everywhere. You go on LinkedIn, you can go on the company website, you can go on Glassdoor, you can go on Fishbowl.
ChatGPT. Literally just ask ChatGPT what the company does.
Dude, you can, if somebody messaged me and said, hey, Josh, I'm thinking about applying at X, Y, and Z, can you, like, most people are willing to help. I mean, like, use your resources. I mean, like, you might hit some people up and they don't answer you, but like, it's worth a shot. And there is so much info out there. And so, like, if someone comes to an interview and I say, tell me about the company, and they don't have a decent understanding, like that's a no off the bat. And that's why
Immediate
I
red
asked that
flag.
like immediately. So it's like, tell me about yourself and tell me what you know about the company. Like, I can make a pretty strong decision, honestly, off those two questions.
Yeah.
But yeah, and it goes back to like why we asked the first questions, like how do you articulate, how do you articulate in general, like communication? Do you do effective research, right? And like nobody's expecting these folks to be experts in the products, right? Because I even like think about new SDRs, like the onboarding they go through. I mean, it's super extensive, but like you should be able to communicate like here's who you sell to, here's why you sell it to them, here's the problems you solve, here's the benefits that folks get from working with your company. You should probably know a handful of senior leadership, right? Like who's the CEO, who's a couple VPs. Yeah, I mean, like you got to come prepared with like at least that.
Yeah, 1000%. What's going through my head right now is being the interviewer, the SDR leader. I've always struggled with interview questions because I'm like, man, I really need to nail down the key attributes of a high performer. And so I need to ask these 15 questions and I overdo it. But what I'm actually really appreciating about your answer is two questions into this interview, you know, if they present well, if they
Yeah,
communicate well, and if they research and they're proactive. Like there's only like one more bucket we need of, gut checking failure and hard work. And
exactly.
we could probably make a good call based on that alone.
Exactly. Yeah.
I've had some funny stories, horror stories where candidates come in. This one candidate, I asked that, like, hey, so tell me about what we do. Totally explained a different company. I was just like, okay.
Uh,
And then I had another candidate, I could hear her like going to the website and clicking, and then she's like trying to use filler. She's like, yeah, so yeah, yeah, I think you guys do like scheduling,
mm,
and I'm like, okay. So I think what this piece comes down to, the advice that I would give here is similar to Josh's, like just take the time to prepare. And it's super simple, y'all. Do like a pre-interview checklist where you have 5 things you need to go fill out,
mhm.
right? Like who's the leadership? What does this company do? And then what I teach the people I work with is you need to know what persona do they sell to?
Yeah.
What pain does that persona experience? What does your solution do to take care of the pain? And what objections do you think are going to come up?
Hmm.
You can
And
get that.
and why all that and the why too.
Okay. Tell me about the why.
Well, look, I mean, like let's say we sell data, right? That's really popular SaaS solution to sell. But let's like, why are you selling that data? Right? Like maybe we sell it to the government, right? And we want to have really we want to know, we don't want to spin our wheels, or we want to focus our resources and bandwidth on the appropriate markets, or like the appropriate agencies. Like there's always a why, right? So I just like,
Yeah.
what do you sell and why do you sell? Like what problems are you solving for? Like people, like companies don't sell SaaS just like, there's always got to, it's super competitive, right? Like there's got to
Yeah.
be a problem. Like folks don't dish out thousands of dollars, sometimes millions of dollars for these solutions unless it's solving a big problem, you know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And all of that info is so easily
So,
accessible. ChatGPT, company website, YouTube, just go Google their name or YouTube their name. Videos will come up about case studies, all that. And then, something that I think really works is reach out to people at the company.
mhm.
Say that you're preparing for interviews. Are you willing to give me feedback for 2-3 minutes and answer a few questions? Boom. Now you've got the inside scoop.
Yeah, and you bring up a couple good points too. I mean, like definitely come prepared. I think it's okay to have notes. I mean, like I have this notebook with me everywhere, but and it's okay, but like you need to have do your research and like be able to communicate appropriately without the notes. I think it's a good
Mhm.
reference. I mean, think about like I don't know if you're into stand up comedy. Like a lot of times those guys go up on stage with their note cards, but like they're not reading their bits like off the note cards, a couple bullet points, you know.
Mhm. Mhm.
And then also too, like to your point earlier, like hiring, like interviewing is hard, but like hiring is hard too. Asking the right questions, and I think that's why just like today we're just having an open conversation. I think that's how you run a proper interview, right? It's like
Yeah.
nobody wants to sit there and be interrogated. Like I don't want to do that. Like someone being interviewed doesn't want to do that. You're not going to determine a qualified candidate that way. It's like it's
Mm-mm.
just open, like having a conversation. I think that's also an important part of interviewing is like being able to hold that conversation. Because
Mhm.
I think too the more senior people you interview with, because like if you think about a traditional interviewing process, you probably talk to HR, you talk to a hiring manager, maybe talk to two peers, two future peers on your team, then you might talk to 1 to 3 senior folks. And once you get to that senior level, like they're not really asking any questions. They
They don't
want to
really care, to
they
be
don't,
honest.
they don't care, right? At that point, especially like larger companies. Like this might
Yeah.
not be relevant for like a seed stage or series A or whatever.
Yeah.
But like they like holding a conversation too. And I know I'm rambling now too, but I think also when you're interviewing, if you come to the interview and you kind of drive it and you own it and you ask a lot of questions, like thoughtful questions, meaningful questions, it doesn't give the interviewer a chance to kind of drill you. You know, you drive it,
Correct.
and like I'm impressed by that. Like I'd rather sit here and have a conversation. So if you come and you ask me a bunch of thoughtful, like not like oh like what's the culture like, what's the PT like, not like stuff like that. But if you own it and you drive it, you don't really give the interviewer like too much of a chance to ask
Yeah.
anything crazy.
No. No, you want to assert yourself as someone who's confident and someone who can lead. Now, you don't do that with arrogance, right? You're humble and you're a good communicator. But one of the simple ways to do that is whenever they ask you a question and you respond to it, ask them a
Yeah.
follow up question about their company, right?
Yep.
Turn it into a convo where
Yep.
you're kind of bouncing back and forth rather than you being on the defense of like, okay, what question is next?
Exactly. You never want to be on defense. If you could be on offense as much as possible on the interview, it's going to go in favor.
Yeah.
And also, that's a good point too. Like when you hop on the call, like I might be a little old school, but like I hate small talk. Like you and I, even today, like we didn't talk about the weather or like the Miami Dolphins or anything. Like we just, it's like just use it as like that's your opportunity to get right to it. And like
Yep.
some folks might not appreciate that. I think a lot of folks do. But you hop in, and it's like, hey Jack, like thanks for coming to the interview. I'm excited. Like I would drill a question right off the bat, just get them thinking. Like I'd like own the
100%.
conversation. Like from the second that they turn it over to you, like I would just own it.
Yeah, 100%. The first thing out of your mouth should be appreciation.
Yeah,
Hey, Josh, I want to just say thank you so much for your time. I'm very excited about this opportunity, and I really look forward to getting to know you and more about the company today.
totally.
That right there and that downtone inflection, like you're here for business. You
Yeah,
want a job. You're not here to hopefully squeak by through an interview. Nope. You know what your goal is and you're going to get to it.
exactly. And once again, like this is all how real sales processes work, right? So if you're running a discovery call or demo call, like I'll tell you this, C-suite does not want to hop on a call and talk about the weather in your favorite restaurant in their hometown. Like they want to get right to it. And I think that's how you just run it. I think that's how you run a proper interview.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, on that specific note of preparedness, how prepared are they to answer that question? What do you know about our company? The bar's pretty low. I mean, I know from my interviews, hundreds of interviews I've run, that bar is so low. And the people who do take time to prepare their answers and research the company, they far outshine everyone else who's like, "Yeah, I think you guys do this."
Yeah.
So,
I think it depends. So, I've worked in organizations that sell very complex, high ticket solutions, very complex industries, financial services. We're talking hedge funds that manage billions and billions of dollars, and asset managers and wealth managers. Very complex, lots of nuance. I would expect someone's level of understanding maybe to be. I still want there's a certain bar for sure, but like I'm not gonna expect someone to be like an expert by any means.
yeah.
It's like I've worked with early stage companies that sell. I hate to say it, but like more of a nice to have than a need to have, where the
Mhm.
solutions are maybe a little bit simpler. It's probably like an SMB solution, more transactional. Maybe even as a consumer, you've used that product before. It's like much easier to have like grasp those solutions and like what they do, why they do it, who they sell to, and why. and like the bar would be much, much higher for like a organization like that. So
Yeah.
I think
And
it,
I think you'd agree that the bar we're looking for is not expertise, it's
no.
effort.
Yeah, and once again, it's not like really what you say. I mean, to an extent, it's what you say, but like how you say it too, right? So I mean,
Yeah.
like being confident and also being like super self-aware too. Like, don't come in and pretend you're an expert in an industry you've never worked in. Like, just
Yeah.
yeah, like be like, like I'd rather someone say, hey, like I've never worked in this industry. Like, but here's the research I've done. Here's what you do based off my research, and here's like 3 questions I had from my research. I'd rather like have a conversation. I'd rather someone come with like, hey,
That's
here's what I
good.
know, and like here's like 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. Like, can we talk about that?
So good. So good. Absolutely. Okay. Third favorite interview question to ask SDR candidates.
There's a couple flavors of this, but like I guess in short, like what do you think makes a successful SDR? Right? Because we're talking about, earlier in this call, like what I think makes a successful SDR. And I think there's probably, I don't know, I think there's probably like 5 to 10 right answers, right? There's probably not. I think there's some nuance there. But like you really, really, really have to want an SDR career to get into, or sales in general. Like this is not an easy career.
Mm-mm.
It's never going to be easy. It's always going to be hard. And so like, just like, did you research like, here's what SDRs do. Here's why they're important in the sales organization. Here's what successful SDRs that I've researched do. Maybe you reach out. There's like we were talking about earlier. There's tons of thought leaders on LinkedIn. Like they're constantly posting. It's not hard to find this information on what makes a successful career or SDR. And like just I think it kind of tells you a little bit more about the personality of the SDR. I think everybody has a different want and a different why. Some folks super money motivated. I think that's important in sales. It's not the end all be all. Some folks want the recognition. Like some folks want to whatever it is, right? So I think it gives you like a good opportunity just to like understand them a little bit better as well.
Yeah. And I think that question very quickly weeds out the people that are only applying for tech sales roles because they were told it's 100K remote and it's fun and you get to do whatever you want. That is not what tech sales is. And if you don't know why a company is about to invest 80 to 90K a year in you and you
Or
can't
more.
articulate that or more, what are you doing? Like, why
Yeah.
are you applying for this job? So I love that, Josh. Puts
Not
the
to go on a
ownership on them.
tangent, but like I think it's important to realize like your 80 or 90K OTE is not the investment in an SDR. Think about the tools that these organizations use. Like even a lean shop, you probably have a CRM license. Maybe it's a Salesforce or a HubSpot or whatever. You probably have some sort of sales engagement platform. Maybe it's a sales law for an outreach or whatever. You probably have some sort of data intent like a Zoom in for a seamless. I mean, it could be a $200,000. I mean, I haven't crunched the numbers. You probably have more than I have. It could be a $200,000 investment to hire an SDR, all said and done.
Add on top of that, the leader that's supposed to coach that SDR, right? That's another, whatever, $150,000, $200,000 found the
Yeah,
company, right? So 100%, you are a massive investment. And if you cannot articulate the value you're about to provide to this business, why are they going to hire you? So love
yeah.
that question.
And I know we're talking here how to break into tech sales too, and like something else I'd encourage your listeners or community or whatever. It's like sometimes you need to start somewhere else to get in there, right? So like tech sales is not the only way to make $100,000. I have a lot of colleagues and people I've worked with in tech sales in the past that are no longer in tech sales selling other things and other functions and making a lot of money. And even folks that haven't worked in tech sales that want to get into tech sales, like to your point, selling solar and insurance, like there's ways to make good money. And like, it's a lot better to put your resources into that. You can earn some income, support your family. And then like, it's really good, actionable and like relatable experience to like actually move into the proper tech world that you're looking for,
Yeah. Yeah. The number one disqualifier is if you're not willing to work hard, bye.
Yeah, exactly.
Leave. I don't need you here. Bye.
Yeah,
Because this is not going to be easy to get a job. When you have a job, you're going to be busting your butt every month to go make sure you get paid. And at the same time, on a more strategic level, you're building relationships, you're making sure your name is going to be up next for that promotion. Like it's hard work and it doesn't stop.
exactly.
On that note of helping people break into tech sales, all the job seekers out there right now, what's one piece of advice you'd give them to help them break in?
Do the job you want, right? But also, I think I don't think there's one traditional path to get into tech sales. Like I don't want to make this about me, but I walked a really untraditional path to get into tech sales. When I was 18, I went to Florida Atlantic University actually on a music education scholarship. So I was going to school to get a music education degree. I had scholarship. After a year, I was like, teaching music's not for me. So of course I lost the scholarship. I kind of just fell into a sales role, and I was selling industrial supplies. I was working at Fastenal, selling like nuts, bolts, safety gear. Tech sales has been sexy ever since I've been around. Like it's not, so that's always kind of been the goal to move into that. And but like I spent a year learning how to sell, learning how to hustle, learning everything that makes a great SDR, and just prospected and prospected and prospected. Did the job I wanted, and officially, finally kind of land the role in tech sales. And also, every company is different too. Like I think startups run widely different than large mature companies, right? So like, I was an account executive at a software startup for many, many years, almost 4 years. And for me, I just wanted to sell more complex products, a more complex industry. I was trying to break into a large organization, and I had a really tough time doing that. And I was really confident in my ability to sell, but I took a giant pay cut. I mean, I took literally a 75% pay cut to go join a large organization in a support role. And I was like, I'm just going to bust my ass in this role and network with sales from day one. And that's what I did. And after a year, you just kind of move into the sales org. So like, there's a lot of different ways to move into an org like this.
100%. It's just hard work. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the differentiation right there. And y'all heard it from Josh's mouth himself. Interviewed hundreds of SDRs, managed hundreds. He himself said you must do the job you want. You
Yeah.
need to do the job to get the job. So, Josh, appreciate you being here. For all of those out there that are still on the hunt for a tech sales job, I'm going to drop a free guide for you that shows you step by step how to get into tech sales. And if you're unwilling to go do that, you don't need to be in tech sales. But if you're willing to put the hard work in, you're willing to network and connect with people and learn, then you will be successful. So, Josh, thanks for being here, man.
Thanks
Appreciate it.
for having me. Thanks for having me.